The battle is over a new expressway Chicago proposes to build within the city, the Crosstown Expressway.
Well, you neither want to leave nor give someone else an opportunity to stay. Is that the answer? Shall we take another vote?
A question is put to the city's Commissioner of Public Works, Milton Pekarsky.
Why don't you listen to the people?
Well, we have listened to the people. We've met with them in angry meetings, and we've talked with them in quiet sessions. We've learned about their concerns and listened to their suggestions. Obviously, not everyone in the community is going to have the final say on how and where the expressway is going to be built. This is true of any public project. However, by consulting with the citizens that are affected on the Crosstown Expressway, we better understand their concerns and can serve their needs and the needs of the community. The people have had their say and will continue to have their say.
I don't see that we have been convinced that we need a Crosstown.
Now, we've been asked why we need this expressway. Crosstown Expressway is the last link in Chicago's expressway system. Without it, the continuing congestion on the other expressways is intolerable. The opportunity of traffic to get to the business and industry in the Crosstown corridor is such that industry is leaving. Jobs are being lost. These are serious problems to a community.
The expressways built inside our great cities have become a sore point with the people. But while Chicago already has its ribbons of highways that weave in and out and through the town, still another expressway is needed. There are still the bottlenecks that interfere with commerce and frustrate the individual drivers who live or work in the city.
Down to, about the Cicero turnoff. From there to the loop, traffic is bumper to bumper, moving very slowly.
The problems of handling traffic as it grows and changes with the city are always there. What is new in Chicago is the way in which the city proposes to solve those problems. It is approaching the task with a new awareness of the need for careful, comprehensive planning, so that the expressway, once built, will serve not only those who drive on it, but those who live near it as well. Wherever the highway passes in the neighborhoods that stretch out from the Chicago Loop, the goal will be to save and strengthen existing social structures rather than to divide and destroy. But the idea of the Crosstown Expressway itself goes back to the turn of the century. Its need was foreseen even then by Chicago's first great city planner, Daniel Burnham. The Burnham Plan of 1909, a comprehensive plan for the entire city, called for a crosstown road, or boulevard, as they called it then. Architect William Hartman of the Crosstown Design Team explains.
And Burnham envisaged a city with a system with radials going from the center of the city to the outskirts. And he contemplated that those radials would be interconnected by something that he called a grand circumferential. And that the purpose of the grand circumferential was to take traffic that wanted to bypass the city and provide easy way for them to go around using the radials, etc. In recent years, with more and more automobiles and trucking, it has become increasingly evident that this system had to be completed. And that's what the Crosstown is all about. We have the Kennedy, we have the Eisenhower, the Stevenson, the Dan Ryan, all in place and functioning well. The system now needs that connector. That's the fundamental purpose of the Crosstown.
Lewis Hill, Commissioner of the Department of Development and Planning, tells us of the innovative additions to Burnham's plan that make the Crosstown much more than a traffic artery.
In carrying out the development, we've been concerned not only about the movement of cars and trucks and buses, the people that are within them, but also what such an expressway does to the neighborhood that it passes through. The new elements of the Crosstown Expressway call for fitting that expressway into the fabric of the neighborhood and providing not only a method of cutting through the neighborhood for through traffic, but improvements for that community, and therefore we have the areas for residential, commercial, park, and related facilities. It's not only important in terms of how the crosstown passes through the community, but the roadways that connect, the areas where new commercial development is contemplated that will be of service not to the traveling public, but to the community itself. Areas marked that could be used in addition for roadway, but also the excess parcels that can be used for local recreational purposes, for park activity. The new housing developments, the areas in terms of the pedestrian walkways, so that the crosstown, while it breaks the previous pattern in the fabric of the neighborhood, can be replaced by an improved system of pedestrian movement which will not conflict. The inclusion within the crosstown of mass transit facilities so that we have both the private auto movement and truck and other service vehicles, but also mass transit incorporated within this one corridor carries out the concept of the comprehensive plan of corridors of high accessibility, or in fact, corridors of intense accessibility for the movement of traffic.
Joint development began in Chicago with the formation of the multiple discipline design team called Crosstown Associates. Architects and engineers from private firms, along with traffic analysts, sociologists, housing experts, legislative advisors, work with their fellow professionals in the federal, state, city, and county governments. Every department of the city has people on the job: education, health, urban renewal, streets and sanitation, public works. The planning goes beyond highway travel to public transportation, housing, schools, industrial parks, jobs, recreation. People and their neighborhoods. And the state's chief highway engineer, Richard Golderman, tells how those people are being involved.
Today, we are going to the people themselves to ask for their recommendations and solicit from them their approvals of our proposals.
The community meetings are generally held in a local elementary school, familiar to the residents and easy to reach. Crosstown personnel are on hand to explain the diagrams and charts, to answer questions, and to listen. Here in this meeting and others, crosstown planners are reestablishing communication with the people, demonstrating that the people and their neighborhoods do count. They are told in advance what crosstown proposes. They are consulted in advance. They are, in fact, part of the crosstown planning team.
At this time, I present to you the Commissioner of Public Works, Milton Perkowski.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we have based our design work for the Crosstown Expressway on the following goals: to improve and increase the number and variety of jobs available to the residents of this area. We will make available to homeowners and renters monies necessary to relocate in homes just as good or better than they now live in. Maximum opportunity for community improvement. Minimum relocation of homes and businesses. Relocation in equal or better accommodations for anyone who is displaced. And I repeat, relocation in equal or better accommodations for anyone who is displaced. We're going to stay here tonight to answer any questions that any of you have. We'll continue this as long as there are people who are asking questions.
Where will these shopping centers and greenways and parks be? And will they be a part of the community that is now, on the plans? Are they on the plans that you presented up there?
Yes, they are on the plans. Parks, playgrounds, many facilities now lacking in neighborhoods along the expressway corridor.
If the highway goes any place, why can't, whether they are white, black, or otherwise, buy new housing at a subsidized, or whatever the case might be, flat 3% interest rate?
I would be deceiving you if I told you that there was a guarantee today that you'd buy it at 3%, but I can say this, and the mayor has said it. If we can't provide the replacement housing, we're not going to build the expressway. Okay? All right.
Over a time of many months and many meetings, the people are being assured. They are learning that their government does care.
Is there an account of how many housing units?
Get your question.
Okay, thanks a million. Now I can feel better about my house.
The thing I like about this job is that it's kind of a fulfillment. It's an opportunity to work on a positive public works project that kind of fulfills a desire to do some good in the community. When we went out to community meetings and talked to the people, and you know, like it really mattered to us what they were saying, and I can remember at a couple of those meetings someone would make a suggestion and we'd take that idea and bring it back here and try and work it in, and that's terrific. I used to think the government didn't really care or anything, but
these young professionals are bringing fresh talent and ideas to Crosstown while preparing for this and future projects.
Would be an example concerning a neighborhood group in one of the areas of our corridor where they countered one of our alignment proposals with an alternate alignment which was accepted, thereby saving, I think, 80 houses. I think this is a very clear example of how flexible the system can be if the system is understood. I think there's a great danger, though, for anyone in any of the design professions and even any of the social sciences that are related to public policy formation, where their viewpoint becomes limited by their professional concerns and the difficulty in maintaining a current attitude as far as their professions are concerned. And I think by mixing the disciplines and professions working on a project such as this, we're able to break those blinders and see the project as a whole and see how the issues with which we're each concerned relate to each other and relate to the clients who are the people in the neighborhoods and in the city. And I think the fact that this project is concerned with this multidisciplined approach which will enable this kind of fusion of ideas is what makes it so exciting. It's one of the primary reasons I think I wanted to become involved with it.
The Crosstown represents the first attempt to really make the highway more than just a transportation artery. And I think this is the reason that many of us, including myself, have wanted to work on this project. It's a landmark type of project in which many disciplines are brought together to attempt to make the highway more than just a highway.
The aim of the Crosstown team, then, is to create new social benefits for the city while linking up the existing system of expressways. Those expressways are the Kennedy Edens that serves the north and northwest, the Eisenhower to the west, Stevenson to the southwest, and Dan Ryan to the south. The Crosstown Expressway corridor will run from the junction of the Kennedy Edens Expressways, moving south on Cicero Avenue to meet the Eisenhower, then the Stevenson Expressway and Midway Airport. At Midway, Crosstown is to turn east to join the Dan Ryan and Chicago Skyway route to our eastern and southern states. The extent of the highway and its funding is outlined by State Highway Engineer George March.
The Crosstown Expressway, which is approximately 22 to 23 miles long, is part of the interstate highway system and is the last portion of the interstate highway system to be constructed in the city of Chicago. It's part of 41,000 miles that was provided for in a 1956 congressional bill, and the funding relationship for the Crosstown is 90% federal and 10% local. That 10% local will be funded by the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, and the state of Illinois.
The size of the bill indicates the scope of the project foreseen by its designers as one of the great engineering and civic achievements of this century. They aim for the highest level of engineering performance in the building of the expressway itself. But more than that, every aspect of community living is included in the program of integrated planning called joint development. All levels of government are involved. In meetings like this, the concept of joint development is realized, as each design team member brings forth his own professional suggestions and contributions to be discussed by other members of the team. The goals are community impact and community benefits. Each section of the corridor is studied separately on its own terms. The The objective is a plan that can be discussed with local residents at informal meetings well in advance of public hearings. The discussion at this meeting concerns itself with not only those jobs lost by business relocation, but also those gained from new business coming into the area, and relocation, the possibility for legislation change to allow 3% mortgages, and the assurances needed to allay the fears of those who will be relocated.
The direction we have is that we're not going to relocate anyone unless we have a place to relocate them.
People don't want to go out into communities for jobs. They want to work in their community. What kind of jobs, then, can you say to them are going to be brought back into this community as a result of the highway?
There's quite a bit of vacant land here, and we will be taking this drive-in theater. And so that offers a very good area for industrial development.
They begin to see the problems as you see them. They're going to ask those kind of questions.
If the legislation is changed, then every one of those things is a certainty.
The mayor and the government officials are asking the people to review alternatives and to offer suggestions. It's not to Crosstown, but to the government.
Making the proposals to have legislation change. Now, you guys get out there and support it.
So let's make this Highway Act workable for the community.
In making the highway workable for the community, housing for those displaced is a primary concern. Wherever possible, the Crosstown team will clear away only those residential and commercial buildings that should go. It is negotiating to purchase areas like this bus graveyard to provide space for new housing. They have found other sites along the Belt Railway and elsewhere, some vacant, others run down and overdue for renewal. There will be no high-rises here. The new housing will be built to fit in with the stable neighborhood of small homes that now exist around it. And it will be a safe highway. Engineer Joseph Luber tells of the new technology that has gone into crosstown planning.
From the earliest stages of the design of the project, the design team has been greatly concerned about the impact the Crosstown Expressway would have upon the neighborhoods through which it passes. This particular model illustrates one section of the freeway with the roadway depressed below the grade of the neighboring community. It includes, in addition to the 4 12-foot lanes for the moving traffic, a 12-foot lane along each side of the roadway for stalled or disabled vehicles. Alongside of those shoulders are emergency barriers that will provide protection against out-of-control vehicles, designed so that the vehicle can actually be brought back under control by the motorist who is operating it. Cross streets are carried over the freeway by means of bridges, and the piers or supporting elements of those bridges are kept well back of the traveling roadway to minimize the possibility of collision between the vehicles and any supporting elements. The traffic leaving the freeway or entering it will be brought in by means of specially designed ramps. The surface of the pavement will be designed with a coarse texture that will virtually eliminate the possibility of skidding, except under the most severe conditions of rain or snow. Every possible effort has been made to make this the safest highway in the United States.
Along with safety, the Crosstown Plan has not forgotten the people who depend upon mass transit to get to jobs and conduct normal business. Public transportation is an integral part of the Crosstown Plan. Approximately 94% of all travel in urban areas is by automobile. Yet 25% of our people, especially the old, the very young, the poor, and the handicapped, don't drive a car. A balanced transportation system provides adequate transportation for all the people in a community. The Crosstown Plan is such a system. One of the most important design elements of Crosstown is what is called the split alignment, and with it, reversal of the usual traffic flow. Architect Carter Manning discusses the benefits of the split alignment with his Crosstown colleague, urban designer Roger Seitz, the way it serves both the traveler and the expressway's neighbors.
Roger,
I have always liked the concept of a split highway through the city with our 2 lanes here and here. But what really helps us, I believe, is this new concept of reversing the flow. By putting the frontage road on this side, on the inside, we open up this tremendous tract here in the center for industrial use, commercial use, and yet we provide a buffer on either side of the highway for our neighborhood areas. It seems to me that this really accomplishes what is in the city's comprehensive plan for corridor usage in the city.
The concept of reverse flow is worth a second look. This is the normal traffic flow. In each lane, the faster traffic is on the left, and the slower is on the right. Frontage roads are on the outside of the expressway. In the Crosstown plan, we will reverse the flow, so that with the corridor on the inside, autos on the slower lane to the right can move directly off the expressway onto the frontage road, which is now on the inside, next to the corridor, thus confining the full traffic load within the highway complex and away from the surrounding neighborhood. Reverse flow eliminates the necessity of cloverleafs and is therefore more economical.
Here's a beautiful example of how that system works. Right next to Midway Airport, where we replace Cicero with the northbound lanes and have the southbound lanes right against the railroad. With the frontage roads on the inside, that really opens up this area, which is now all vacant, for development that could work with the whole airport complex. In this case, you can come right off of the highway onto the expressway frontage roads and then right into this development area, and you can envision development reaching really high densities while the traffic all stays within this area and then can get back on the highway here. It never has to leak over into the residential areas. At the same time, Midway Airport can operate within itself as well in its own parking facilities, in and out within the corridor, and not really bothering any other activities. Now, where we have residential areas on the interior, further to the north and the south, we can develop schools, our parks, or other community facilities, and all we have to do is simply not connect to the frontage roads. And there the cars go right by, and the activities can exist on the interior without ever getting involved in the expressway traffic. This is an exciting response to a particular set of conditions we found here next to Midway Airport. All up and down the highway, we've been able to develop unique solutions to the problems we find in any particular location. We've gone from split design to conventional highways, and we've varied location of the roadways from one part of the area to another. In this way, we feel that the highway can really be a benefit to this community.
One of those benefits is job opportunity. Each mile of the freeway presented new problems and new opportunities. In this particular site is a very good residential area, one of the busiest railroads in Chicago, and a highly developed industrial complex. This industrial complex has about 1,200 jobs. It's immediately adjacent to the railroad, and what Crosstown is trying to do is fit this highway in between the railroad and the industrial complex and save homes. The easiest freeway location in this particular area is through a residential area of very good homes north of the 2 plants. The obvious alternative to avoid these homes is to place the freeway in the parking lot behind the industrial building, taking out one of the buildings and continuing on. The solution recommended is one between the 2 industrial buildings adjacent to the railroad. The freeway is located below the grade of the existing railroad, and bridges are provided across it to bring the spurs into the plant. Ramps are placed from the freeway up to the local streets connecting the plants to avoid traffic in the residential area. The obvious advantage of this is to save the plant and the residential homes. The advantage that goes along with this is that it creates a remnant parcel which can be used to develop an industrial complex to restore jobs that might be taken by the Crosstown Expressway. Engineer David Novick explains another example of concern for people.
The planning of the Crosstown Expressway, the east-west route here along 75th Street, is what we consider an excellent example of planning in which people come first. We considered several routes through this area. The most direct and the shortest would be to build the expressway along 75th Street. This would mean eliminating all of the commercial activity as well as some of the residential areas. If we had taken this commercial area out, we would lose a great deal of the community atmosphere and would be severely damaging the community. People come here to shop and to talk and to visit and see old friends. Our studies indicated that a longer route, bypassing both 75th Street and the residential communities, was better. The construction cost is higher, but when we consider the impact on the community, we feel this is a better solution. This is the kind of planning which emphasizes people first, and this is something rather innovative in the Crosstown project.
I see the Crosstown as a new blood artery for the areas through which it flows. It will give much increased mobility to all the people who live or work in contact with it. People will be able to have opportunities for jobs at a greatly more increased rate than they now have. They'll be able to participate through this mobility in recreation, in cultural activities, in whatever kind of activities demands mobility for the particular individuals. This, I think, is the great need for this congested area. It's a great need for the people who live there. For the industries themselves, this mobility will mean much. This is the whole key to the Crosstown Expressway, giving increased mobility for everybody that lives anywhere near it.
I think the uniqueness of it is that we're no longer talking about steel and concrete. We're talking about something that will implement and improve the neighborhood. We're talking about how you blend the expressway in with the living in a fine neighborhood and a fine community. How do you improve the schools? How do you improve the parks? And then with the trees and all the different proposed suggestions, we can come up with an urban community expressway that instead of it being a black eye or sore eye to the community, can be a real asset.
The Crosstown Expressway is an enormous undertaking which will be many months yet in the planning and years in the building. The expressway itself will be paid for out of highway funds, along with certain directly related features such as walkways and landscaping. Other projects within the Crosstown corridor, schools for example, housing, shopping centers, must be developed by various government agencies and by private industry. It's a total thing. As one Crosstown designer expressed it, a total thing that may not be accomplished all at once, but we are setting the framework within which things can grow in the future. And when we're done, we'll have hammered out a better city as well as the most beautiful highway built to date. Crosstown, Chicago's roadway for the future.